Hello and welcome. You're watching Closing Trades right here on ET Now, and India mourns the loss of Ratan Tata, a towering figure whose vision reshaped our industries and also whose values inspired millions. His vision paved the way for Indian industry on the global stage, and his compassion set the highest standards of corporate responsibility. So today we have gathered voices from across the sectors with their reflections and memories and inspiration drawn from the remarkable leader. But let me head across to my colleague Anurag Shah, who's there at the location at the NCPA launch right now. Anurag, over to you.
So just now we can see that Union Home Minister Amit Shah has paid last respect to Ratan Tata. Along with Union Minister Amit Shah, Maharashtra's Chief Minister Eknath Shinde, Deputy Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis, Government of India Cabinet Minister Piyush Goyal and Government of Maharashtra's Minister were also accompanying Honorable Home Minister. Other than that, since 10 o'clock, we have seen a couple of others, corporate leaders also, starting from Kumar Mangalam Birla, Harsh Goenka, Ajay Piramil, all of them coming and paying last respect to Ratan Tata, and they are remembering the contribution Ratan Tata has given in the field of industry and the philanthropy. So everybody is remembering the contribution of Ratan Tata, his words, his inspiration to start new things. I am also joined by my senior colleague Anurag Joshi. Mr. Joshi, I just want to understand how Mr. Tata, Ratan Tata, contributed in the overall growth of Tata Group of companies.
If we look at Mr. Tata's contribution to the Tata Group, it can be summed up in four parts. Mr. Tata, when he took over as the chairman of Tata Sons in March 1991, his goal was to make Tata global, think global. So he went about acquisitions. He thought out of the box, and three key acquisitions that Mr. Tata orchestrated were Tata Tetley in 2000, this Chorus, the UK steelmaker in 2007, and JLR in 2008. The other important element was the auto business, which is Tata Motors, and two key launches which took place during Mr. Tata's tenure as the chairman of Tata Sons. The first was Indica, which was the first passenger hatchback in India. So Tata Motors Indica was launched in 1998, and Nano, which was the world's cheapest car, that was unveiled in 2008. Mr. Tata also worked very hard for helping the entry, or rather I would say the re-entry of the group back into aviation. The Tatas had pioneered aviation in India with Air India in 1932, but Air India was nationalized in 1953, and so the Tatas were out of the business for several decades. And in the 2000s, Mr. Tata worked very hard, and he did convince the government to allow the Tatas to get back into aviation.
In 20 years,
All right, thank you so much, Anurag Shah and Anurag Joshi. We'll get back to you. As you can see, live visuals on your screen. That's from the NCPA launch in Mumbai at 3:30, around 3:30 to 4 p.m. is when the journey will begin for the last rides. But let's move on and let's take a look at what the markets are doing at this point in time. It's been a very somber day for the markets as well. Very range-bound trading session when you talk about the benchmark indices. Nifty Bank is the one that was outperforming the benchmarks at one point in time, and it's still continuing to do so. 1.3% uptick coming in for Nifty Bank at this point in time. While the benchmark indices are at the day's lowest point, you have Nifty Bank that is actually standing tall at the day's highest point. Take a look at broader markets. They've caved in actually. Nifty Midcap index is at the day's lowest point as we speak, and you have the small cap index also heading towards that direction. But let's take the market action forward and try to understand which side of the fence are we headed when you talk about the benchmark indices and the markets going ahead. We have Naresh Mirani joining us on the technicals, while we have Gurmeet Chadda, who's also joined us on the show, who's a managing partner and fund manager at Complete Circle Consultants. A very good afternoon to you both gentlemen. And Naresh, let me come first to you. Divergent moves is what we are seeing after a while actually on the benchmark indices and the Nifty Bank. Where do you think either of them are headed at this point in time?
So overall, the bias is positive. What we've seen is in the last 3-4 sessions, we've been trying to form a base around this 24,700 to 25,000 mark. And in that period, we are seeing a rotation. So today is Pharma and IT, which is taking a backseat, which were the real movers over the last many months. Yesterday was almost a new all-time high on Pharma index, and it has pulled back. So it looks like a false breakout out there. But at the same time, you started seeing outperformance come back to Bank Nifty after quite some time. Today is one of those days where Bank Nifty is outperforming Nifty. So seems like a rotational bounce could be in play for the banking space going forward.
Rotational bounce seems to be at play for at least when you talk about the banking sector. But coming to you, Gurmeet, what's your take then? Do you think this rotational bounce will sustain, or do you think that the banks will garner or get back their mojo, and that's where the leadership will lie when the markets actually, after this consolidatory phase, goes back into the rally phase?
I think some rotation is due to financials. I think the change of stance by RBI, will follow with a rate cut. And once the first rate cut happens, I think the market will then discount that, you'll have maybe 75 basis rate cut or 1% rate cut. It may not be a very long rate cut cycle, it would be a much shallower rate cut cycle. And I think that's when it will get priced in. But I think now it's a question of when. It's not a question we can debate whether they will do it in December or early first quarter, which is around February, but that's going to happen. I think PSU banks might see a bit of a comeback. And, the valuations have been very reasonable. In fact, if you see the bank Nifty, you'll find a lot of banks which are at 14, 15 times earnings, one price to book, and good ROEs between 14 to 18%. You never get this kind of pricing in a raging bull market like this. So I think that rotation will have. We saw that with IT 6 months back when it was completely out of favor. So some rotations do. Also, I think the action will now start shift to stocks from index. I think we've had a very broad rally. Some consolidation is due and should happen. And now the action will shift to earnings and stock specific. So I think now the focus has to be wherever there is earning growth, you've got to be anchored to that. There is some softness in few pockets, like the government spending has been very slow in the first 6 months. If you see road expenditure, you see defense expenditure, they are undershooting. So that could reflect in the earnings. So, and we have a festive season beginning. So I think my sense is the action would be more stock wise from here on.
Right, so the action will be more stock specific rather than sector specific going ahead. And yes, you are bound to see some sort of a sector rotation take place. But on that note, we'll slip into a break on this edition of Closing Trades. When we come back, we'll discuss more of the markets with our experts. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back. Well, the market is holding all right. We are at least in the green for what it's worth. We are around that 25,000 mark, and that's where we've been for a long time now. In fact, Nifty Bank is the one which is outperforming, all thanks to that big move coming in on Kotak Mahindra Bank. That stock is up over 4% right now. HDFC Bank is also powering ahead with almost a 2% move coming in. So it's clearly banking all the way. Axis Bank, IndusInd Bank, these are the ones which are doing quite well. What's under the weather clearly is Pharma. So a Lupin will come up for you on the screen. That one is down in the trading session. Not just that, Cipla is also under the weather. Torrent Pharma, Concord Biotech, Alembic Pharma, Alchem Labs. Pick up any of these names from the pharma sector. They are down anywhere between 3 to 7% right now. But we also got the ANFI data today, and it does look like the flow of SIP flows has moderated a bit. The equity inflows, if you look at it, the total figure which is coming is around 34,000 odd crores, and that compares with 38,000 crore that we had seen in the month gone by. Gurmeet, does that give you a bit of a sense that there is moderation in SIP flows? And I ask you that because what's holding the market right now is purely DIIs, and this morning Bernstein also wrote a note downgrading India, saying that they are experiencing or they are expecting the SIP flows to moderate. What happens to the market strength in that case?
Anisha, the moderation is a few hundred crores here and there. We are almost at $3 billion gross. The net flow is 50% of it because a lot of money also gets moved out. So this number is gross, so the net figure could be 11,000-12,000 crores. So while it is important that it gives you incremental liquidity, but that's not the only factor. Also, mutual funds have a category called balance advantage fund and multi-asset fund, where equity levels basically go down when markets go up, and on corrections they increase. So it's managed on a dynamic basis. That category is now upwards of 3 lakh crores. So that holds a lot of cash in form of bonds and arbitrage, etc. And then you have a lot of funds which are sitting on some cash. So the overall cash position is pretty healthy and not just only dependent on SIP flows. And you can have a slightly month-on-month moderation, but in general, these there is a structural uptrend. I just met few new age companies like Grows and some people which are using digital platform. They are adding almost a couple of lakh customers every month in terms of lower ticket SIP. So this trend is now picking up in tier 2, tier 3. And I really don't see that as a trend. One off month, a few hundred crores here and there doesn't make much of a difference.
Okay, so financialization of savings is a long-term trend and you're not worried about the month-on-month trends. But Kunal, are you worried about the underperformance of Pharma today? What's wrong with Lupin?
Yeah, I think there's some bit of profit booking coming across the board for many of these high performing sectors over the last 3-4 months. For example, Pharma and FMCG, these were the two spaces which have done pretty well for themselves. Lupin has gone through a correction from 2300 towards 2150 where it's trading right now, but it still looks like that the stock is into a strong multi-month, multi-year uptrend. Maybe I think after this correction and since it's on the back of much higher volumes, you might see the stock dragging a bit for another couple of trading sessions further. So expecting the stock to maybe come back towards 2080, 2120 odd zone. So this could be a zone where I would probably believe that the selling pressure should abate and the stock may come back into a bounce.
All right, so that's the take coming in on Lupin or also the Pharma index under pressure in trade today. One pocket that's looking pretty bright in trade, it has to be the PSU sector that is actually holding on. Oh, it's actually given up gains right now from those morning highs. The PSU index is now actually seeing gains of about 0.5% or so. It is the auto index also that is mildly in the positive territory. One quick note is the fact that the markets have given up those gains coming in. You have Nifty that is at the flat line as we speak. Is the IT index that's under pressure right now, 1% lower coming in for the IT index. And Gurmeet, what's your analysis or what have you penciled in for the IT index or the IT sector in the quarterly earnings that they are going to be releasing as early as today?
So, I think there could be some near-term support due to Nasdaq and the move in Nasdaq because there's a high correlation between Nasdaq and Accenture numbers were actually pretty decent, and that led to some strength in IT. Despite the fall in the market, the IT stocks did not see that much correction. But with earnings season starting, I think the market will get differentiated because if you still forecast flat growth or very low single-digit growth, the stocks are trading at 25-30 times. So it's not that they're very cheap, but yes, because of high cash levels, high ROEs, and being such an asset-light business, these are like Pharma, like FMCG, safer bets in turbulent times like this. So we are constructive on in large cap on TCX and HCL Tech. Then we also have KPIT Technologies. The stock has consolidated now for almost 6 months in this 16-1800 band. It's in auto software. It's in the band which we call as CASE, which is connected, autonomous, shared, electric. And if you speak to global OEMs, the ERD budget and the software budget for car, there has been no moderation. And then we have some of the niche names, which are there in this space. So we are very selective in terms of what we have in IT. Painting everything with the same brush that entire IT is looking good, I think may not be the correct thing to do.
TCS is trending a bit lower. However, we started the day in the green. Now it's moved into the red. The expectation is it's going to be a decent quarter, 1.1% kind of top line growth. The deal when expected $8 to $10 billion and the margin expected to improve a bit. In the meantime, I stand a bit corrected, Gurmeet, because the SIP number has come in and no, there's no moderation on that. Even though the overall equity inflow has tapered a bit, the monthly SIP figure has come in at 24,500 and that compares with 23,500. So there's actually an improvement of 1,000 crores on a month-on-month basis. record high level yet again. In fact, we surpassed 24,000 mark for the first time. On that note, however, we will take a short break. But as we do that, here are some more corporate bigwigs talking about their tribute that they want to give to Mr. Ratan Tata.
He was in many ways a unique individual. You did not have to call him Mr. Tata. You called him Ratan. He was so humble, so feet on the ground kind of a person. He was a global leader in every aspect of the world. An amazing, long-term, forward-looking thinker, very strategic. He built enterprises in India, which demonstrated India can build global leading companies. And yet, he was a person you could have a one-on-one conversation with and feel as if you're with a close friend or a family member. I've, of course, had multiple occasions to meet with him. And every time came away with the feeling I'm just talking to a close friend. I've had him drive us around some of his own plants. Last year I spent an entire afternoon with him in his home talking about one of the projects we are doing, and got amazing feedback from him and encouragement to do something we are trying to do, which is unique in many ways. And that was him. He was not only do things which were unique, he was always also encouraging of others. He would step out of the way if what he was doing was seen to be a stumbling block. So that made for a very complete human being.
So one small thing.
Somebody that we will all miss.
So he was a pioneer of Make in India, like the Hero Group is a pioneer of Make in India. So he took India to the world, a brew pioneer of Make in India.
Yes, that is true. And he used to have this conversation. Actually, he was both my father's friend and he was my friend. So this is a conversation we have had on multiple occasions, that these are two groups which have a lot of similarities and we should figure out a way to do something together. And he truly pioneered just so many practices. He not only continued the legacy, he built on top of that to build something unique as an enterprise.
All right, it's along with India, I'm sure the rest of the globe also is mourning the loss of a legendary figure like Ratan Tata. My colleague Sumita caught up with Sanjeev Bikhchandani as well on his take.
I recall about 10 or 15 years ago, there was an event in Delhi where I think at the Ministry of IT, where there were several people from industry. At the end of it is a group photograph of all of us. Mr. Tata went and stood at the back of the group. Now, he was a senior most person in that room. And everybody in the front said, call Mr. Tata to the front. And he refused to come. Finally, after much persuasion, he came to the front. He was that sort of person, self-effacing, modest, shy, did not seek the limelight, truly modest. I think it's very rare to find an individual like that who has achieved so much and given so much to Indian industry.
His contribution to the startup fraternity as well. You mentioned that he held an umbrella of brands and developed them into some of the best brands that we are seeing today. But speaking specifically about the startup sector as well, his company was invested in so many of them, has helped early investors just like you are as of now. But do help us understand that bit, and if you could also recount a couple of instances of your meeting perhaps and some things that inspired you and several other businessmen about him.
So I think he made a personal angel investment in a number of startups. He was deeply interested in the startup economy, the startup ecosystem. He believed startups would transform India and were really important for the Indian economy. And it's great to have someone like him who's at the head of so many large companies to think of startups. I had the good fortune of meeting him in 1985 for the first time. Right? I was 22 and I was in my first job in Bombay. And there's a particular assignment which required me to meet him. And I was very impressed with A, how polite he was, and B, how focused he was. No wasting time. He would say in 50 words what others would say in 500 words.
For now, the market has actually taken a turn for the worse. In fact, we have given up the mark of 25,000 as we speak, just below that mark and very close to the lowest point of the trading session. Actually, it is Pharma which is coming under pressure, but to add to that, Trent, Tech Mahindra, Sun Pharma, Hero MotoCorp. These are some of the other names which are in the red right now. Just trying to gauge as to which are the pressure points for the markets right now. Apart from Pharma, IT too is not doing well. So TCS of course is waiting by for its numbers, but Infosys is down almost 2% in the trading session. Tech Mahindra, as I pointed out, 2.5% cut coming in there. Naresh, any sense in getting into any IT names on these dips?
So I would wait out for the results to come out, and if there is a major gap down on the result, that would be the time to enter. Too much of a overnight risk for the next 10 days when the large cap IT results come out. So I would wait out for the numbers, no entry at current levels.
All right, so that's the day coming in on the IT sector. But let's head across to my colleague Snehi, who's standing by to tell us about the trends that we've seen in the Tata group of companies when you talk about the FMCG space. Snehi, over to you.
Well, absolutely. So we're all remembering the titan Ratan Tata today, and his contribution when it comes to the FMCG sector amid the Tata group of companies has been immense. Let's break it down and let's take these products one by one and take a look at what his contribution has been towards the entire FMCG space. First up, let's talk about one of the biggest acquisitions of its times back then, and I'm talking about the acquisition of Tetley. Now, Tetley was a tea company, the biggest one in Canada and second in USA and UK, and they were looking for a buyer in India, and Tata's tea and coffee segment was not doing very well at the time. So Ratan Tata went ahead and acquired Tetley, that after later became known as Tata Tetley, for $450 million. And now this company has grown 3 times the size of Tata Tea. So it in fact has been a very substantial acquisition. And remember, this was also a very brave move, very adventurous move going back in time, because acquisitions of this scale were not very common at the time. And let's also talk about some recent moves then, and let's talk about the next big entry that happened in India in the beverages space. And now I'm shifting focus from tea to coffee. Let's talk about Starbucks, because Starbucks came in India via the Tata group of companies with a joint venture in the year 2012, and it was known as Tata Global back then, but now at present it has more than 200 stores across 15 cities in India. Let's talk about Big Basket now, because that is also another good venture by the Tata group of companies. It was India's first online grocery platform that was started in 2011, and Tata acquired a 64% stake in Big Basket in 2021. And this Big Basket has also recently tied up with Chroma, which is, mind you, yet another Tata company for the quick delivery of electronics, and the likes of iPhone 16 are also being delivered on Big Basket in or under 10 minutes. Let's also shift focus and talk about Tanishq now, because Tanishq was first launched as a division of Titan, and in 1998 this was a watch and accessories brand, and they also launched Fast Track back then. In 2004 Tanishq tied up with Moet Hennessy's LV watches to service these watches via its customer care centers in India, and in 2014 it also tied up with Mont Blanc and a JV for its retail presence in India via the Tata group of companies. So that's largely about Tanishq, but let's also quickly shift focus and talk about Titan, because Titan started its operations in 1984, slightly before Ratan Tata became the chairman of the Tata group. At present, it has more than 8,500 employees with more than 3,000 retail stores across India. So every brand that Ratan Tata has touched or introduced in the FMCG space amongst the Tata group of companies has turned into gold, and it could easily be said that Ratan Tata has the Midas touch, or in fact had the Midas touch when it came to the FMCG space.
Okay, thanks so much for that, Snehi. Yes, definitely, leaps and bounds is what we saw, the growth in the FMCG, vertical of the Tata Group as well. But Gurmeet, the Tata Group itself is something which has touched everyone's life in one way or the other. And even at the, shareholder level, if you're, stakeholder in that respect, it's definitely rewarded you. What's your reading of Tata Group from here on?
It's not only been a great wealth creator, but they have been true, statesmen in terms of, building the nation, showing compassion, doing, whatever they do, and standing for values. And this is what you want in life, Anisha. This is the best IRR you generate on your life portfolio. Everybody, missing and feeling it's like a personal loss to everyone. I think Tata portfolio continues to do well. We are invested in Tata Consumer. We have Titan in the portfolio. We have TCS. We had Pages Networks. So I would probably have, like a lot, maybe 25% exposure of my 100 rupees in Tata. I think continues to do well. I think they are taking a lot of strides in semiconductors now in Tata Electronics. A lot of work happening on electronic manufacturing in terms of JV, on making iPhones and other stuff, and some great work happening even on new energy. With initiatives under Tata Power and others. So I think the new age themes, which is clean energy, semiconductors, electronic manufacturing, I think Tata will be at the forefront. They anyways have dominated IT, retail, consumer brands, etc. So I see them pouring into these, new themes as well. And I think there'll be, and I think that's probably the one of the largest group as we head into a $10 trillion economy.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Gurmeet, for joining us on the show to give us your take on the markets as well as sharing life lessons as well that Mr. Tata left us with. On that note, we slip into a break on this edition of Closing Trade. Stay tuned. When you come back, we'll discuss more of the markets, which is currently at the day's lowest point.
Welcome back. Well, the market is close to the lowest point of the trading session right now, just below the mark of 25,000 as we speak. Individual movers at that. DB Realty is up, Mazgaon Dog, Gujarat Fluoro, GRSC, Rashtriya Chemicals. These are some of the names which are doing well. And a couple of these Tata group of companies, Tata Investment and Tata Teleservices, are also in focus. On the losing side, Ambuja Cements has given up its gain quite sharply today. Home First Finance and Aptus Value Housing are a couple of other housing finance companies which are under pressure as we speak. But we do have Siddharth Khemka also joining us on the show right now. Siddharth, hi, good to be speaking with you. Before we get on the markets, let's talk about pharma sector a bit in detail, because today that one is coming a bit under the weather, whether it's Lupin, whether it's Cipla or any of the names. Is this a dip, a buying opportunity?
Hi, Anisha, good afternoon. So yes, I think if you look at the overall expectation from the sector has been pretty good in terms of earnings. They have delivered past few quarters, and even in this quarter, where the overall earnings for Nifty is expected to remain flattish to a marginal growth. Healthcare is expected to report a strong 15% earnings growth, which would be its sixth consecutive quarter of robust earnings. And we have seen the sharp up move in a lot of these pharma names into the last couple of weeks, and especially in an environment where market was not doing well. So I believe today the move is largely a profit booking move, and correction in this space is only an opportunity to get into some of the names which will be reporting very strong numbers. For example, companies that we like within the space, Cipla, DVs, they are likely to report strong numbers. On the domestic focused side, we have Ipca Labs, Mankind, which will be reporting strong numbers. And these are some of our preferred picks as well from the overall pharma space.
That's a take coming in as far as the pharma sector is concerned. But taking a look at what else is happening, and PSUs are also doing quite okay in the trading session. Naresh, any picks there?
So on the PSU side, there could be some bit of a bounce back in a lot of defense names. I would go with the Bharat Electronics with a strict stop loss below 284 and expect a bounce back towards 310 odd levels. But it's a tough trade. Apart from that, none of the other PSUs make a lot of sense.
Okay, so not a lot of PSUs are making sense. There's only limited and selective. That is how you have to deal with the PSU basket right now. But Siddharth, financials, that's one space which has been a consensus undervalued underperformer of sorts. Today it is doing very well. Kotak Mahindra Bank has finally come out of the slumber. What's your take on Kotak specifically, and even HDFC Bank?
Yeah, so I think the earnings growth has been pretty steady for the BFSI. However, we have seen the sector kind of underperforming, largely on back of NIMs, which have come off from the top. And we believe now with the interest rate cycle likely to change, we expect the NIMs to bottom out and credit growth as well as more challenge that the industry was facing on the deposit side. We expect that to now marginally start improving. Investments into a lot of other revenues, including equities, were the main reason why we are seeing increasing competition for deposits. And with markets now consolidating at higher zones, we believe interest rates, so deposits growth will return to a level where the credit lending will also improve. And within that space, HDFC Bank, ICICI is our preferred pick within the private banks, where the growth has been consistent, strong, asset quality has been pretty stable, and the credit growth has been pretty strong. HDFC, we believe, yes, with the merged entity, the large NBFC book makes it difficult for HDFC to show the kind of growth. But again, at these valuations and the kind of improvement in growth from here on, things would start looking better.
Okay, so growth should start looking better. That's the hope right now. But let's take some closing ideas as well. Do remember it's the weekly options expiry today. But come tomorrow, what's expected to outperform, Kunal?
So I'll go with a couple of buy calls. Bharat Electronics is something which I'll be bullish on at current levels. The stock making a very strong recovery from the 275 odd mark levels. So would suggest a buy with a target of 300. Stop loss to be kept at 278. And Dixon Tech is something which I've been bullish on over the last couple of days. Looks attractive at current levels also. So maintain the targets of 15,500. Traders who are looking at a fresh buy could look at a revision of the stop losses higher. 14,500 could be a revised stop loss for someone taking trade now.
Okay, so Dixon Tech and BEL, these are the two top recommendations. Suresh, what do you have for us? Some BTSC trades, STBT with sectors?
So looking at the banking space where the risk reward is in favor, today for the first time, HDFC Bank is showing a relative strength. So expecting this to make a bounce back tomorrow as well. Stop loss at 1650, target price of 1700. Second is the buy on IndusInd Bank, which is at a 6-month support zone. Stop loss at 1340, target price of 1400.
Okay, those are the top recommendations coming in. But Siddharth, what's your top recommendation right now in the sense of any sector, theme which you would want to bet on?
Yeah, Anisha, so IT is a space that looks pretty good to us for Q2. The overall revenue growth for IT sector is likely to be decent, with client spending behavior showing positive trends, indicating that the potential return of discretionary spending, especially in some of the pockets, for example, US banking is something that we believe the spending would improve. Among the tier 1 players, we are positive on HCL Tech, given its strong capabilities in the data engineering, ERD offerings, plus the ERP modernization, making them well suited for the pre-Gen AI spending. So we expect HCL Tech to be a broad-based growth across verticals and geographies. Even in the Q2 numbers, margins are expected to see a 30 basis points Q-on-Q improvement. We expect HCL Tech to retain its FY25 revenue growth guidance in the range of 3 to 5%. So that should be a stock that one can look at in the current environment.
Okay, so that's the take. IT is one space which you are bullish on right now. And yes, TCS is expected to come out with a decent show, and perhaps in the next 1 hour itself, we'll have the clarity and it will kickstart the earnings season, hopefully in style. But taking a look at what else is buzzing around in the trading session, and overall in terms of the market, it is M&M which is holding out. NTPC, of course, is the other one. And sectorally speaking, apart from banks, it's metals which are bouncing back a bit. Energy and auto is also in the green. Talking about the auto space, Siddharth, in the coming week, of course, it will be all about what's happening to Hyundai. What's the take there? Have you done some number crunching? Are you impressed? Not so impressed?
Yeah, so Anisha, we did have a look. The numbers came in only a few days back. If you look at the overall auto space, definitely the sector is kind of witnessing a slower growth in the passenger vehicles as well as in the two-wheeler space, with the OEMs giving a lot of discounts. Hopefully, the commentaries have improved with regards to the festive season, Navratri, then we have Dussehra, then Diwali. I think hopefully things would start looking up. Some of the newer models have been launched. So we were doing the number crunching in terms of growth for the last 2 years. If you see, especially for Hyundai, the revenue growth has been around 21% CAGR, while net profit growth has been 45%. And compared that to Maruti, which has given a growth of 26% in terms of revenue in the last 2 years and 87% net profit CAGR. So growth has been in line with the industry. Valuation wise on FY24, the IPO is at coming at about 24-25 times PE in FY24 terms, and while Maruti, which is the market leader, trades at about 29-30 times. The challenge for Hyundai is the capacity constraint that it faces going forward, and the new capacity would only come in the second half of FY26. The other challenge is lack of presence in the EV space, where the company has again come out and said that they will be launching the Creta EV only by the end of or the fourth quarter of this financial year. So a bit late in the cycle, but nonetheless, these are challenges that the company would face. Net, I would say that the company is the second largest player in the domestic passenger vehicles market. Valuations are decent, not attractive, and hence one could play this stock only from the long-term perspective. In the near term, because of the growth slowdown in the overall auto space, I would not expect a big bang listing, and given that this is the largest IPO, the demand from investors would be mostly filled from the IPO itself.
Okay, so that's the take coming in as far as Hyundai IPO is concerned. Yes, there is a bit of a sluggishness right now, but one needs to decide whether they're looking at the long-term prospect of the company and the sector or the IPO pop, because there are people who believe that IPO pop this time might be missing given the market mood that we have seen so far. Overall, for the markets, it's been a volatile day for the trading session. At one point of time, it was looking all right, but from there, we have given up gains. But shifting focus back to, of course, the tribute and the homage that we have been paying to Mr. Ratan Tata, and his love and passion for aviation is quite known. From flying in a fighter jet to buying Air India back, some of the moments of his passionate discussion with Ratan Tata are remembered by Boeing India and South Asia President as well, Salil Gupte. Hear out.
Well, Mr. Tata, most of my recollection of Mr. Tata is actually even before I came to India. It was largely around his association with Cornell. So I'm a proud graduate of Cornell many years after Mr. Tata. And Mr. Tata was, of course, a member of the class of 1959, started as a mechanical engineer, became an architect, and was a long-time supporter of the university and truly a consummate gentleman in the personal sense, long before any business engagements.
And you must have met him at different air shows or some business conferences. His love for aviation was something that was widely known. So you remember him as somebody who, apart from being in the aviation sector, he was not active for many, many years, got active of late when he bought Air India. But you remember him as someone who loved aviation as well.
So make no mistake, even though it was one of his most recent acts to drive the Tata Group with the current chairman to pull Air India back into the Tata fold, Mr. Tata was always involved with aviation. Throughout his career, he was a pilot. He, of course, liked to fly his Falcon by himself as well. And even for Boeing, as we did our joint venture here years ago to set up in Hyderabad the venture with Tata where we make the Apache fuselage and now the 737 tailfin, Mr. Tata was a key driver of that. So aviation as a business was always very close to his heart.
And what, if you can tell us, one two memorable moments with him when you met him and you said something about him, or maybe he greeted you about that?
I remember at Cornell, there was a conversation about majoring in architecture, because this is somebody who's a true business magnate and industrial icon, not just in India, but globally. And people were curious. People asked the question, well, why architecture? And it was an area of interest at that time. And what I remember the professor saying about that interest was that some of the greatest visionaries of our time have been people who had an eye for design. There's something about that that makes you a visionary leader.
A visionary indeed, and in all walks of life, not just business, but his sense in terms of startup, his sense in terms of what is needed for the mankind and the greater good, all of that will be remembered very fondly by not just Indians, but everyone globally. But in other news coming in from the sporting arena, Rafa Nadal has hung up his boots from professional tennis. He's announced his retirement at the age of 38. So that's perhaps something that all the sports aficionados would be looking at. After Roger Federer, it was about Nadal, who was the GOAT. Now he's too hung up his boots. But it's time now to hand it over to Snehi. She's standing by to walk us through the closing of the market as well.
Well, yes, absolutely. Let's take a look at how the markets have shaped up today, and rather lackluster trading day coming in for the Nifty, because at one point we were struggling to even manage to hold on to the green, flipping between the green and the red. Right now also trading with a very mild positive bias, just 0.1% gain coming in on Nifty. But yes, once again, like yesterday, struggling to hold above that 25,000 mark. Sensex also in tandem with the Nifty, in fact just a 0.2% increase coming in, but looking comfortably above that 81,500 mark for now at least. Advance decline ratio in the favor of the advances today. Nifty Bank, let's take a look at what that index did, because banks have outperformed the market today, and banks, both private and public, have done pretty well for themselves today. And Nifty Bank is also up 1%. We'll talk about Nifty Bank a little later in detail about the constituents, but first up, let's take a look at some Nifty 50 gainers today. Kotak Bank, HDFC, BEL, Maruti, Power Grid, M&M, all of these stocks have done well. However, what did not do well and weighed on the indices today was Cipla, Trent, Sun Pharma, Tech Pharma and Hero MotoCorp. And while we're talking about Sun Pharma, also important to know that Pharma, Nifty Pharma, has been your big loser, the sectoral loser of the day, and almost 2% lower is where that index has ended. So let's just quickly take a look at what weighed on Nifty Pharma today, and you have the likes of Natco Pharma, Glenmark, Ipca Labs, Dr. Reddy, Abbott, Divi's, Zydus. All of these have ended today's trading session in the red. But well, yes, you have banks as your big winner. Metals, Energy, Auto have ended the day in the red. However, PSU Banks, Realty, FMCG, IT and Pharma are your big losers for today's trading session. Couple of stocks highlighted on the back of order wins. Some stocks did well, some pockets did well on the back of brokerage notes as well. But well, yes, this is how we are shutting shop for the day. 0.1% uptick coming in on Nifty for today's session.
There comes a time when your heart calls for you to arise. Plant your feet solid into the ground. Decide your own limits. And then break right through them. Become something more. It's my time to rise.